What's up, everyone? Alex here. So it's been a crazy week here in LA with all the fires that's happening and stuff. And for people who are affected, my heart goes to you, and I can definitely relate. Like, there was literally a fire like less than 5 miles away from my house. It's one of the most stressful things I've ever had to experience in my entire life. And thankfully that is dissipating. But you're probably wondering what this is all about. And that is a rose that my friend gave me for Christmas. And I'm wearing it because my grandmother's name is Rose, and she is a lot closer to these fires than I am. There are many other fires happening in LA, and I just wanted to wear this in solidarity with her plight. She is not evacuated yet, but she's doing much better. The air quality has gotten much better, and the fires are slowly getting contained, although tonight it might get worse. So fingers crossed. And by the time you watch this, I would have known if things are worse or not. But anyways, you're not here for an update to the LA fires. You're here to talk about video games. And I want to ask you a particular gaming question. And before I get into that, I want to contextualize this by saying that I feel privileged to be able to play video games every single day as long as I can, anywhere that I can hook up my PlayStation and my Switch, right? This is the kind of dream position that people aspire to do, whether it's streaming or making, VODs for YouTube and whatnot. But I also recognize that the way that I play video games is very, very different than how you play video games. In other words, unless they're working in the industry, nobody gets a chance to play more than 40 hours of video games every single week. If you remember last year, I asked you guys, in my Gaming in My 40s video, and also a community tab post, how many hours do you have for video games these days? And some of you, actually, not just some of you, a huge majority of you basically said about at least an hour a night. And when you think about Persona being 100 hours long, Persona 5, 3, 4, whatever, that is 100 days for 1 hour a night, if that. If you have a family, that's probably going to be shorter. There's just going to be some days where you're just so tired that that 1 hour, you're not spending that on a video game. You're just crashing because you got to get to work the following day or something like that, right? So from that context, my question to you is, what kind of gaming choices and rules have you imposed on yourself in order to be able to finish video games or play the video games that you want to play, whether it's a backlog or an upcoming game? And I want to start this off by sharing with you my experience. In fact, this is actually a very recent experience, and this had everything to do with Metaphor. So everybody knows that Metaphor came out in October. That's a great time to come out for that video game. Fantastic game. Awesome. What you don't know is that I was also in the middle of a move from Portland to California while this came out. I was dealing with so many things during this move that by the time I actually got to sit down and had time to play the game, I was thinking to myself, okay, I should probably restart the game, right? Because I kind of learned a lot more from talking to people about the demo that I want to impute and impose on my game, right? Being able to use the mage archetype, for example, to get MP. For some reason, I didn't read the descriptions for that, right? And then now, I'm more knowledgeable about it. I don't want to waste any more days in the game. And so I said to myself, okay, I'll restart it, whatever. But then a lot of other videos needed to be made, whether it's the shopping guide video or other reviews of other games that are coming out. And that's the problem, is that I got the key for the game literally on launch. And so because it came out on launch day, I have to balance time between starting this game or continuing it and also starting a brand new game. I think it was East 10 at the time, and be able to play through that game as well. And it's also, by the way, one of the reasons why I don't have an East 10 review, because while I played a majority of that game, I didn't have time to finish it, because I was also trying to figure out if I was going to have time to finish Metaphor, right? Now, keep in mind that I have since finished Metaphor well before the Backlog Battle Awards, right? But this whole restarting video games thing was a self-imposed rule where I basically said to myself, you know what? The best way to experience a video game is through the beginning. That way, maybe you won't miss like the detail with like the mage archetype the next time around, right? And so I did. I meticulously read through everything. I involved myself with all that stuff. And then guess what happened? In December, I had to stop playing the game because guess what? There were other things that required my attention, like videos and whatnot, and more reviews of upcoming games, and games that are not even going to be out until the following year, until 2025. And so I was like thinking to myself, okay, well, I guess I'll pause Metaphor. And then I came back to it. And guess what I did? Foolishly, I was literally at the boss of the first dungeon, like the very first dungeon, the Emperor's Tomb. I said to myself, you know, you probably should restart the game again. Holy shit, that is 3 times that I played through the entire first 10, 15 hours of the game. And while I was playing through Metaphor, you know, and I finally got past that point, I felt so burnt out. I felt like so burnt out because I was like, dude, you played through that entire section 3 freaking times. 1 during the demo and then twice in the full game. What are you doing to yourself? And I've always lamented this ever since like I released the Backlog Battle Awards, because I was thinking to myself, would Metaphor been at a higher spot had I just not been so stubborn to restart all those times and just started where I left off, so that way I can finish the game on time or have a better like appreciation of the first several hours of the game and not be so ruined because of this insistence to replay through the first section because, I don't know, to properly immerse myself. And, you know, like I said, I think about this a lot because I was thinking about like my choice of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And mind you, I love Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think that was still the right choice. But I've always questioned whether or not if I just played through Metaphor the second time through, just all the way, and didn't stop and restarted it, if I would have a higher opinion of Metaphor, if that would have been enough to push it over Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for me. Because these are all circumstantial, right? Like, I am imposing this on myself, this rule, right? And it's something that I've been curious about for some of you as well, because we have talked a lot about our backlogs. We've talked about plans and strategies that we personally implement, like when we're playing video games. Like, I have a member of the community who literally told me that like when his wife falls asleep, he basically plays the Switch or the Steam Deck and stuff, maybe in another room or the same bedroom. That way he can get his hours in. You know, and that's just one example, right? Like, that's one example. The situation with Metaphor is another example. I am curious if you impose any sort of rules when we're talking about video game playing. Like, do you have like a rule where you can't play another game unless you finish another game? Or do you have a rule where you can't buy a game unless you finish your entire backlog and stuff? And again, like, I'm curious about these rules, what they are, and how you feel it's going to help you, particularly because I'm curious if other people will chime in and make this a discussion and see if it's worked for them. Games are getting longer in that genre, so I'm really curious what y'all have to say about that. And again, if you can enlighten me on this, I would definitely appreciate it, because again, like, you know, sure, it's cool that I'm able to play like all these sorts of video games and stuff, but I also feel that it's important to be on the ground with y'all and understand the kind of very real challenges that you face when playing video games. And of course, having fun, right? That's the most important thing. So maybe that's another question you should ask. Like, are these rules making it still fun for you to play games? So something to think about. I know, like, I threw a bunch of questions at y'all, but the main question I want you to answer is like, do you have any rules that you've imposed on yourself when you're playing video games? Anyways, I'm curious about what you're thinking. Post your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. And I'll see you in the next video. All right, laters.